So before I start, I kind of want to premise this talk on two central questions. And the first one I'm going to give you, the first question I'm going to give you is going to be a scenario. So you're walking down the street, and Billy Bob Joe Bob, right? He comes up to you and he says, "I want you to give me one word to describe your God." This is also the part of my sermon where we're going to have audience participation, so you're going to give me one word. Grace. I heard love. Power. Huh? Faithful service. I like all of those. I really do. So keep those words that you said verbally or that you said in your head, put those in the back of your mind. All right, we're going to come back to those. And the second question is, who are you? Who are you? You're walking down the street again and you come to Billy Bob Joe Bob Jr. and he asks you who you are. What do you say? I mean, we all kind of give a generic list, right? Well, I'm a father, I'm a farmer, I'm a this, I'm a that. And how I used to answer that was, well, my name's CJ. I was a baseball player. I was a student. I'm the son to Chris and Yvonne Babb. Now, I left a couple of things off there, and I did that on purpose. I didn't put that I was a husband or that I'm a Christian. I was giving my notation from before I was a Christian. You see, I didn't really start, and there's a good reason why I didn't put that in there. I didn't really start learning about God or learning about the Lord until I was about 17 years old. I didn't even give my life to the Lord until I was 18. All right? And there's a couple of reasons why I waited so long as I did. And if some of you are here that haven't given it, that's fine. I'm not going to force you into it. It's a decision you have to make on your own. But one of the reasons why was, well, I just didn't go to church as a kid. I'm from Southern California. We didn't go to church. All right? That wasn't a high priority. My mom was a nominal Catholic growing up. She went, Christmas and Easter and maybe a baby dedication here and there, but she didn't practice Catholicism or being a Catholic. And when me and my mother moved from California to Missouri, and she married my father, my stepdad, church just wasn't a big deal for them. All right? They didn't want to push this idea of religion or church onto me or my little brother. They didn't stop us from going, but they also didn't force us to go either. So my aunt and my uncle, the only church I ever got was when they came, picked me and my brother up, and we would go to church. That was about it, and even then I didn't really pay attention. And the second reason I waited so long was that this idea of one God. Can we all be honest? The idea of one God creating the heavens and earth and everything that lives on the earth is kind of far-fetched sometimes. It goes against everything we have ever been taught. This idea of one God is kind of illogical. Right? And I don't know why, but one day I decided to pick up a Bible. Right? And so I picked up a Bible. And I didn't start in the Gospels because I didn't even know what those were. So I started how you would start any other book. I started page 1, Genesis chapter 1. And can I say there is some weird stuff in the Old Testament? Let's be honest here. All right? We got one God, a monotheistic God, creating the heavens and the earth and everything that roams on the earth. All right? Not only that, we also got a talking snake. We got a flood that comes in and wipes out the whole population except one family. That's weird stuff, guys. And I don't know why, but I kept reading, and then I got to Exodus. There's some weird stuff in Exodus, too. All right? We got water turning into blood. That doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen. That's not logical. That's no. And then you also got You got all these plagues, there's so much other weird stuff going on. But there's something in Exodus that really stood out to me. And I don't know why it did, but it did. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and flip to Exodus chapter 3. That's where we're going to be today. And we're going to focus on one particular verse, even that. But before we do that, before we even go to that one verse, I kind of want to premise what's going on in chapter 3. So chapter 3 begins this way. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro. Keep that, if you're going to read the Old Testament later, keep that name in the back of your mind, because he drops some major wisdom on for Moses later. The priest of Midian. And he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb. Now Horeb is an important place. This is where it's also referred to as Mount Sinai. This is where Moses would go up for 40 days, 40 nights, get the 10 Commandments, come back down. Aaron's messing up. He breaks the 10 Commandments, go back up for another 40 days, 40 nights, comes back down with a no set of 10 Commandments. So Horeb, that's an important place too, so keep that in mind if you decide to read further. The mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn away to see God. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush. He said, Moses, Moses! And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. So God reveals himself here in a couple of different ways. The first way that he reveals himself is the flame of a fire in a bush that was not burning up. This is weird, guys. When you go to a park, you set a bush on fire, the bush is going to burn and it's going to be ashes. Right? There's something weird going on here. God is showing his domain and power over the land. Next, the angel of the Lord's presence inside the burning bush. This is called, are you guys ready to learn a theological word today? Theophany. This is a funny word. Come on, say it with me. Theophany. All right, good job. You all are now theologians. All right. Which just simply means the appearance of God. Thirdly, holy ground. Moses had to remove his sandals and not come closer because of the supernaturally, potentially fatal power in that place. And lastly, he calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and also the God of Moses' father. You see, Moses is the next leader to move the promise of God forward. So we see this. God is demonstrating his power and domain over everything. And he's calling Moses to go lead his people free. But here's the deal. Like most of us do, when God calls us to move, we hunker down, we buckle down, and we say no. We say no. We don't want to move. We see God do such amazing things, and we say, no, I'm not going to move. That's not me. Pick somebody else. And Moses gives us a list of excuses of why he can't do it. And the first on that list is that he's unworthy. And we see this in Exodus 3:11. He is unworthy to lead his people free. Now this I can see sort of a humility, right? God causes us to lead out of people from bondage, right? And yet we're like, whoa, God, no, I'm not worthy. I've done a lot of messed up things in my past, God. There's no way. But here's the thing. I think there was more cowardness in that unworthy than humility. Moses didn't want to lead his people. He didn't feel confident. He didn't feel like he had what it took. I can believe that. I struggle with that sometimes. Secondly, and this one I'm going to focus my whole argument around, is the confusion of God's name, of Yahweh's name. He says this in verse 13. He says, "Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them?" The confusion of Yahweh's name. We're going to spend some time on this one particular question. And now we also got to remember what's going on here. For 400 years, the Israelite nation has been oppressed and made into slaves. And it's because of these slaves back that we have these great ancient wonders of the world. We got the pyramids of Giza. We got the Sphinx. We got all of this. For 400 years, they've been subjected to idol worship. And even the most dedicated Israelite would have to submit to that. So they eventually took Yahweh and fashioned him out of wood and put him on a shelf with all the other gods. They forgot the true power of God. They forgot what God has done. Thirdly, he says, they will not believe me. They will not believe. They worship these other gods now. I even kind of worship other gods. They won't believe me that you're just one God. And they have no reason to. Fourthly, he's not eloquent enough, as in doesn't have good rhetoric. He doesn't speak very well. He might have even a stutter, but let me tell you this. Moses, so we need to know Moses' story too. So when you look at Exodus chapters 1 and 2, we see Pharaoh, who's still scared of this Israelite nation, who's multiplying and becoming great and becoming huge, and is going to be a great nation one day. Pharaoh is scared, so he makes a decree, we're going to kill all boys under the age of 2. And Moses' mother gives birth to Moses, and she nurses him and holds on to him as long as he can, as long as she can. And the Egyptians come, and she figures that he has a better chance being in the basket in the Nile than to be thrown off a cliff. So she sends him on, and in the Nile we see Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses and takes him and adopts him as her own. So Moses has this opportunity to be in Pharaoh's court. He has the best education in the ancient world. He knows how to read, he knows how to write, he knows how to talk, he knows how to present himself, not just in front of Pharaoh, but in Pharaoh's court, in front of Pharaoh's magicians, in front of everyone. So Moses, don't give me that stuff that you're not eloquent. You know what you're doing. And lastly, after all of this, after everything he says, send somebody else. Send somebody else. I'm not doing this. I'm done. I'm not good enough. I don't even know who you are, really. They won't even believe me. I have a stutter. Just send somebody else. And I love how Moses gives us a list of excuses. And God has a response for every one of them. But the one I'm going to focus on the most right now is God's name and how he presents himself to Moses. And I'm not going to lie, when I was reading this as a teenager, this hit me in my soul. You know what? Let's just read it right now. We're going to be verses 14 and 15. God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God has said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I shall be remembered through the generations. Listen to that, I am. And guys, even as a young man still, this hits me right in my soul. I don't know why, but it hits me hard. God identifying himself as I am is the scariest and yet the most comforting thing that I've ever read in this Bible. I don't know why, but that stood out to me so much when I was a teenager, and it still stands out to me now. And you see, the phrase, I am who I am, carries more than just the meaning of the literal translation. It means so much more. God describing himself as I am that I am is not really a name. He is a limitless God. And by just putting one name on him will limit a limitless God. You understand that I am is just a preference. You can put anything after that, and that is God. He is a limitless God. Do not limit him by merely one name. He is I am. The phrase expressed God's uniqueness among other beings and false gods. He says, you put me on the shelf with all your other gods, but here's how I'm distinguishing myself. I'm the one that made everything. I'm the one that made the earth that you're standing on, the one that you have to remove your sandals because this is holy ground because I'm here. I am everlasting. It means I am the one who exists. He is ongoing, continually acting God. He is ready to act on behalf of Israel's suffering. And let me say this, Christian, he is ready to act on your suffering too. All you have to do is get on your knees and pray. Because that's on our knees, that's when we are the most powerful. In prayer, that is when we are the most powerful. He is ongoing. He is continuing. God needs no name or explanation. His mighty power and tender care for humanity is explanation enough. And lastly, his claims of I am is backed by his wonderful signs and miracles. So church, as we wrap up today, I want to go back and premise the first question I asked you. Who is God? Now, one word answer to use to describe God, he's so much more than that. He is a limitless God. He did so much. He's the God of Jacob. He's the God of Isaac. He's the God of I messed up. No, I didn't. I messed up right there. He's the God of Jacob. He's the God of Isaac. He's the God of Abraham. He's the God of Noah. He's the God of Enoch. He's the God of Seth. He's the God of Abel. He's the God of Adam. You see, our God is the same as he was yesterday. He's the same today, and he's the same as tomorrow. We did not fashion God out of our own hands, but yet God fashioned us out of his hands. He made us in his image. Genesis 1:25a says this, let's make man after our image and after our likeness. God made us. He knit us in our mother's wombs. He knows how many hairs we have on our heads or that we don't have on our heads. God is I am. God is loving, God is saving, God is freeing. And because God is loving, saving, and freeing, I am loved, I am saved, and I am freed. And when I finally understand who God is, that he is the I am, that I don't have to live by the labels that this world puts on me. See, I am more than my skin color. I am more than my gender. I am more than where I come from. I am more than how I speak or how much education I have or don't have. I am more than I'm more than the clothes I wear, the money I make, the cars I drive. Because I understand that I am the child of I am. You are the children of I am. So start acting like it. So we're going to end this talk where we began. Who are you?